Second lesson for this week is equivalent fractions and decimals. Equivalent fractions and decimals. Now, if you've already done this lesson, which I can't remember if we have or haven't, but if you haven't, let me back up. If you have, redo it and try to get 100 on it. If you haven't, then you obviously need to do it and try to get your very best. So if you have got 100 on this, then why don't you go pick another objective that you haven't got 100 on and try to get 100 on it. It's only going to help you for 6th grade math, which is just very close, right around the corner. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going to be in 6th grade. So here we go. Equivalent fractions and decimals. How would the following improper fraction? Now, let's refresh our memory on that. Improper means that the top number is way too big. I'll write it a little bit bigger. Your top number is your numerator, your bottom number is your denominator. Look how way too big that is. It's like 12 is way bigger than 5. That's what makes this very improper, terribly improper. And so what are we wanting to do? We're wanting to write it like a mixed number. Now, a mixed number means it's got a whole number, and then over here it's got a fraction. That's what makes it mixed. A whole number plus a fraction. So we don't want to leave this improper. We hardly ever leave a fraction improper like that. So here's what you do. You take the top number. In fact, write this in your notes. Top number, and I'm writing the hashtag sign for number, divided by the bottom number. Top number divided by the bottom number. We're going to be doing this all day, all lesson. Top number divided by the bottom number. So I'm going to take this 12, which is the top number, and I'm going to divide by 5, which is the bottom number. And look, over here, I'm going to write my remainders like fractions, okay? So 5 cannot go into 1, but 5 can go into 12 2 times. 5 times 2 is 10. When you subtract, you get a remainder of 2. There's no other number to bring down, so you're going to write your remainder like a fraction. That 2 is going to go on top as your numerator, and this 5 is going to go on bottom as your denominator. There's your answer, 2 2/5. What did I do? I divided the top number by the bottom number. I put 12 under the hood, and I divided by 5. When I got to my remainder, I wrote it like a fraction. My 2 is up here as my numerator, and my 5 is down here as my denominator. 2 2/5, which was letter C. Which of the following is equivalent to 18 over 27? Well, basically, what they're wanting you to do here is they're wanting you to reduce this fraction. So here's 18 over 27. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to come down here to this 27, and I want you to write right beside it 3 times 9. Because that's the two numbers that multiply together to get 27. And we're going to start with this biggest number. Could 9 dive into that 18? Because what we're trying to do is reduce it, okay? Could 9 dive into that 18? It could. And how many times could it do it? It could go in there 2 times. Could 9 dive into that 27? Yes, it could, and it would be 3 times. Now let's stop for a minute. I could have used the 3. The 3 could have dove into that 18, and the 3 could have dove into the 27. But the reason why I didn't use the 3 is because whenever you want to reduce fractions, you want to pick the biggest number to reduce by. So if I reduce by 3, I'm going to circle this right here. If I reduce by 3, 3 could go into 18 6 times, because 3 times 6 is 18. 3 could go into 27 9 times. Now look what you've got. You've got a number that still needs to be reduced. 3 could go into both of those. 3 can go into 6 2 times. 3 can go into 9 3 times. Look what I ended up with. The exact same answer. That's why this is the better number to reduce by, because you only had to reduce 1 time. So I know that that 18 over 27 is actually 2/3. Now I'm going to come over here and see if I see 2/3. I don't. That means I'm going to have to reduce these as well. Well, I know right off the bat I'm looking at B. I like the looks of B because I know 9 plus 9 is 18. Or 9 times 2 is 18. So that means this is worth half. So that's not the answer, because half is not the same as 2/3. So let's just dive into here. 36 over 54. Now look what I'm doing. I'm coming out to this side, and I know that 54 is 6 times 9. And remember, I'm trying to do the biggest number I can. So I'm going to try this 9 and see if it'll work. Could 9 dive into that 36 to reduce it? Yes, it could. 9 can go into 36 4 times. Can 9 dive into that 54? Yes, 9 times 6 is 54. Oh, hate it when it does this. Okay, so look what I had. I said that 9 could go into that 54 6 times. Now, I'm not done here because both of those are even. You would never leave a fraction that's an even number on top and bottom. So if they're even on top and bottom, you're going to divide by 2. 2 can go into that 4 2 times. 2 can go into that 6 3 times. And look what I got. 2/3 and 2/3. So my answer has to be letter A. We reduced before spring break, and I know that's been a while, but we have done this. Letter number 3. Which of the following is equivalent to 4/5? Well, nothing can go into both 4 and 5. That's a reduced fraction. So that 4/5 really is as low as you can get. Now, some of these are not as low as you can get, and I'm telling you right now, that is not the answer. 4/5 is not the same thing as 5/4. Do not fall for that. They're trying to trick you. That's a trick. Let's just start right here with 12/16. And just like I did on the last problem, I'm going to come out to the side and I'm going to say 12/16 is 4 times 4, or excuse me, 16 is 4 times 4, but so is 2 times 8. There's a lot of things that are 16. So I'm going to start with this biggest number, 8. Could 8 dive into 12 evenly? Is 8 times anything 12? It is not. So I can't use 8. That won't work this time. My next biggest number is 4. Could 4 dive into 12? Well, 4 times what gets me 12? Oh, I know. 4 times 3 gets me 12. And I got to use that same number. So I'm diving 4 into this. I got to dive 4 into this. So how many times could 4 dive into that 16? 4 times 4 is 16. So is 3/4 the same as 4/5? It is not. So that cannot be the answer. And for some reason now I've got red over here. It hates me. That should delete it. Oh well. Okay, 5/6. That's a reduced fraction. Nothing can go into both 5 and 6. So is 5/6 the same as 4/5? It is not. So that cannot be the same answer. Let's take, I know this is the answer, but I want to show you 12/15. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come over here beside 15 and write what times what is 15? Well, it's 3 times 5. Let's start with the biggest number. If I'm a 5, can I dive into 12 evenly? And I'm going to tell you why you can't. Because any thing times 5 is either going to end in 5 or 0. Like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And I never heard 12 because that doesn't end in 5 and 0. So 5 won't work. But 3 will. 3 can dive into that 12 4 times evenly. 3 can dive into that 15 5 times evenly. Is 4/5 the same as 4/5? You bet it is. So that's why I know the answer has to be letter D. Write the following fraction as a decimal. Well, our notes while ago said to divide the top number by the bottom number. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take the top number, which is 1, and we're going to divide by the bottom number, which is 8. And you're like, Ms. Caulfield, 8 could not go into 1. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to put a decimal and a 0 under the hood, just like that. You're going to bring the decimal straight up. 8 cannot go into 1. Do not put a number right there. But 8 can go into 10. How many times could it go into 10? 1 time. 1 times 8 is 8. Now you're going to subtract. Don't worry about the decimal. Remember, it's got a new home up here. 10 minus 8 is 2. If you get a remainder, you need to add another 0. Bring that 0 down. 8 can go into 20 2 times. 8 times 2 is 16. You can't say 0 minus 6, so the 2 becomes a 1 and the 0 becomes a 10. Count from 6 up to 10. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you're going to get a remainder of 4. If you get a remainder, add another 0 and bring that 0 down. Now guess what? This is going to be perfect because 8 can go into 40 5 times evenly, making your answer be letter D. You divide the top number by the bottom number. And if you have to put a decimal and a couple of zeros, that's perfectly fine. Which of the following is equivalent to 10 over 15? Well, here we go. We're going to have to reduce this. So I'm 10 over 15, and I'm going to come over to the side because I know 3 times 5 is 15. And I'm going to start with the biggest number. And if I'm a 5, can I dive into that 10? I can. I can dive into it 2 times. If I'm a 5, can I dive into that 15? I can. I can do it 3 times. So 10 over 15 is actually 2/3. Now I'm going to come over here and see if 2/3 is over here. It isn't, it isn't, it isn't, it isn't. So now I got to reduce. So here I go, 5/10. Well, you're smart enough to know that 5 and another 5 is exactly 10, or 5 times 2 is 10. So you know what this means? This is worth half. Is 1/2 the same as 2/3? It is not. So don't pick A. Now you've got 20 over 30. Now I want to show you a cool trick. And I can't remember if I showed you this before spring break or not because that seems so long ago. But in a fraction like this, if you have a 0 on top and a 0 on bottom, you can go 1 0 for 1 0. So what does that actually leave you? 2/3. What did I need? 2/3. So that's my answer. Letter B. Convert 0.25 to a fraction. Well, here's what you do on this. You got to think about the places that these fall in. So here's your decimal. And one place to the right of the decimal is the tenths. 2 places to the right of the decimal is the hundredths. So how would you say this number? 25 hundredths. So another way to write that is like a fraction. 25 hundredths. That and that are the exact same thing. So let's look over and see if we see 25 hundredths. Oh, we don't. You want to know why? Because we have to reduce. So here we go. Well, how do I get 100? What times what's 100? Well, 50 times 2 is 100. 25 times 4 is 100. That ought to be a pretty good start. So let's start with our biggest number. If I'm 50, could I dive in to 25? No, it's not big enough, so that won't work. Now I go to the next biggest number, which is 25. If I'm 25, can I dive in to 25? Yeah, I can. 1 time exactly. If I'm 25, how many times can I dive into 100? 25, 50, 75, 100. That would be 4 times. So there's your new bottom number. So what's 0.25? It was 25 hundredths. When I reduce 25 hundredths, what do I get? 1/4. Letter C. I love fractions and decimals. Which of the following is equivalent to 3/8? Well, 3/8 is reduced, so there's nothing I can do to 3/8. It's as low as it can go. But these aren't reduced. Do not fall for that. 3/8 is not the same as 8/3. Don't pick that. But let's start right here with 15 over 40. Just like I showed you a while ago, come out to the side and write 5 times 8 gets you 40. then start with that biggest number. Well, here's my biggest number is 8. Could 8 dive into 15? Is 8 times anything 15? No, 8 times 2 is 16, so that doesn't work. Can't use 8. Maybe I can use 5. Can 5 dive into 15? It can. Is it 5 times 3, 15? And can 5 dive into 40? It can. Isn't 5 times 8, 40? So 3/8 is the same as 3/8. So there's my answer, letter A. Drag the tiles to the boxes to form correct pairs. Not all tiles would be used. Drag tiles to show pairs of equivalent fractions. Okay, so what they're wanting us to do is reduce. So I can tell you right now, the fact that these are both even numbers, the fact that these are both even numbers, and the fact that these are both even numbers tell you right off the bat those need to be reduced. So I'm going to start right here with 6/8. Since they're even numbers, 2 could go into both of them. How many times could 2 dive into that 6? 3 times. How many times could 2 dive into that 8? 4 times. And since there's a 3/4 right here, I'm going to drag 6/8 down and 3/4 down, and those are equivalent. So that takes care of that one. Now, these were the other 2 that were even numbers, so I'm going to start with 4/12. Now, I could divide these by 2, but I think I can go bigger, so I'm going to come over to the side. I'm going to write 3 times 4 right there, because 3 times 4 gets me 12, and I'm going to start with this biggest number, 4. Could 4 dive into 4? It could, 1 time exactly. Could 4 dive into 12? It could, 3 times exactly. So that means 4/12 is the exact same thing as 1/3. 4/12 is the exact same thing as 1/3. And my last one is going to be right here because both of those are even. 10/12. Now, 12 is 2 times 6. It's also 3 times 4. So let's start with this 6. If I'm a 6, can I dive into 10? Well, 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. It skipped 10, so 6 won't work. Next biggest number is 4. Is 4 times anything going to get me 10? Well, 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. Nope, nothing will get me 10. Now my next biggest number is 3. Is 3 times anything going to get me 10? 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. Nothing got me 10, so the only number I have left to work is 2, and that's okay. I already knew 2 was going to work because they were even numbers, but I was hoping a bigger number would work. If I'm a 2, can I dive into a 10? Yep, 5 times. If I'm a 2, can I dive into a 12? Yep, 6 times. So 10/12 is the same as 5/6. 10/12 is the same as 5/6. There we go. Which of the following is equivalent to 5/6? 5/6 is already reduced. There's nothing that can go into both of those, so that stays the same. Do not pick that. 5/6 is not the same as 6/5. In fact, it's flipped over. Don't pick it. Maybe it's 15/18. Well, 18 is 2 times 9. It's also 3 times 6. So I'm going to start with my biggest number, which is 9. If I'm a 9, can I dive into 15? Well, I know I can't because 9 times 2 is 18, and 9 times 1 is 9. So much for the 9. Now my next biggest number is 6. If I'm a 6, can I dive into 15? 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. I didn't hear 15, so that won't work. Now I got to do 3. If I'm a 3, can I dive into 15? I sure can, 5 times evenly. And if I'm a 3, can I dive into an 18? I sure can, 6 times evenly. So 5/6 is the same as 5/6, which was letter B. All you're doing is reducing fractions. And last one. Courtney bought a address for 7/8 off the original price. What decimal represents the discount she received? It's wanting you to change this to a decimal. And the first thing I told you to do was to divide the top number, which is 7, by the bottom number, which is 8. And if you want this like a decimal, you got to put a decimal and a 0 under the hood. And you bring the decimal straight up. So 8 can't go into 7, but 8 can go into 7D. Let's think about this. 8 times 9 is 72, so I need to back off a little bit. 8 times 8 is 64. You can't say 0 minus 4, so the 7 becomes a 6 and the 0 becomes a 10. Slap your leg on 4 and count up to 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that would be 6. Now look, I have a remainder. I want this to be a decimal, so you add another 0. And you bring the decimal straight, or the 0 straight down. The decimal's already up. Leave it alone, but you bring the 0 down. 8 can go into 60 about 7 times because 8 times 7 is 56. You can't say 0 minus 6, so the 6 becomes a 5, the 0 becomes a 10. Slap your leg on 6 and count up to 10. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That gets you a remainder of 4. I still have a remainder. Then you add another 0, and then you bring this down, and this is going to work perfect because 8 times 5 is exactly 40. 0.875. And look, I don't have a 0 there, so if you want to add a 0, that's fine. That is the exact same thing as that. Don't get hung up on that. Yay, what do you know? We made 100. Okay, what is this called? And let's figure out where it is. It's equivalent fractions and decimals. It's in the top section. It's right there. Equivalent fractions and decimals. Okay, I'm going to tell you again. If you've already done that, but you didn't get 100, then redo it and try to get 100. If you did get 100 on that, then pick something else to do and try to get 100. I mean, the goal is just to keep your mind fresh, okay? So we're getting close to the end. I'm super duper proud of y'all who have stayed, all caught up. I'm going to shoot some shout outs through text to your parents because you deserve a pat on the back, truly. And before too long, I'm hoping that we'll actually get to, see each other at Walmart and that sort of stuff. I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. Miss you. Can't wait to see you in 6th grade because you're going to rock it. Talk to you later.